Hi, welcome to today's video. My name is Paul. So this week again, I had a chance to do a bit of loose, somewhat abstract watercolor landscape painting. Just using the same materials as last week, a week before, just Sennelier paint, a single brush, some water, paper, a few other bits and pieces, keeping things simple and trying to keep things fun as well. So splashing lots of paint and water onto the paper, spraying water onto the paper. You'll see in a second I lift up the board that the paper's attached to and start moving it around just to get those drips and dribbles and things moving around. Just, as I say, having fun, experimenting, trying different things. And over the next couple of weeks, I want to try a few more things with these sort of paintings. Just see what happens. I did have the chance to do quite a bit of painting this week, but this painting is actually from last week because I had a bit of a problem with the camera. The camera died on me. Usually what I do is I set up the camera, make sure it's pointing in the right direction and it's focused, press the record button, and then I forget about it. I just focus on the painting. This time, after about the fourth or fifth painting, I did notice that the camera had stopped working. I thought maybe just the battery had died. That can happen sometimes. But unfortunately that was not the case this time. The battery is okay, it's the camera itself is something not right. So I'm hoping it can get fixed or it'll start working again or something, because I really don't want to have to buy a new camera. They're kind of expensive. Anyway, these are the difficulties of being a small-time YouTuber. We'll see what happens next week, but hopefully there'll be some kind of video next week anyway. This week I wanted to talk about an artist called Alfred Walis. I don't know if people have ever heard of him. I don't think he's that famous, but he is sort of very inspirational. I find his story very inspirational. And that's why I wanted to share his story. It's always nice to hear an inspirational story in a world that's full of, let's say, lots of non-inspirational stories. Alfred Walis lived most of his life in a place called Cornwall, I think in St Ives in Cornwall. Cornwall is a county in England. It's, I think I'm right in saying it's the far southwest of England. And for a long time it was quite an isolated part of England, so it had its own sort of unique culture and things. It even had its own language for a long time. I think up until maybe the 17th or 18th century, a lot of people still spoke Cornish, and it was quite a different language from English. They were really unrelated. It was one of the Celtic languages. Anyway, Alfred Walis, I'm getting sidetracked. Alfred Walis, I think for much of his life, was a fisherman. I guess fishing was one of the main industries in Cornwall. He got married when he was 20. His wife was significantly older than him. She was 41 when they got married. He worked as a fisherman. After his wife died, and I guess because of the age difference, she died quite a bit before he did, Alfred became a bit isolated, a bit lonely, and wanted something to do. He was in his 70s. Obviously he was retired from fishing. Fishing is kind of a young man's job. He wanted something to do. He decided to start painting. He would become an artist. Now, he'd never taken an art class in his life. He'd maybe never even been to an art gallery or a museum or anything like that. But for some reason he decided he was going to become an artist and do some painting. So the thing that really inspires me is, first of all, that he was in his 70s when he decided to do this. I find that inspiring. You know, anybody who tells you that you're too old to start anything new or become an artist or whatever, just ignore them. They're talking nonsense. Say Alfred was in his 70s when he decided to start painting. Another thing that I find inspiring is he just did his own thing. let's say he didn't have any art lessons. He wasn't, if this was long before the internet or anything, we're going back into the second half of the 19th, early 20th century. That's when he was around. So this was long before he would have had access to the internet or other artists' work, things like that. He just did his own thing. Which again is one of the messages I try to get across in these videos, I think, on this channel. You know, do your own thing. It doesn't matter what other people think of it, whether they like it or not. You're the artist, you do your own thing. And then another thing that I find inspirational about Alfred's story is he wasn't a wealthy man. He didn't have a lot of things lying around that he could use. He just used whatever he had available. So he used old cardboard boxes and he just painted on those with just paint that would have been used to paint ships, boats, or house paint. Just whatever he had available. And again, it would have just been brushes that he would use for painting houses or boats. Nothing special. Sometimes it's easy, or there's always the temptation to get lots of materials and different things. I would say don't go down that road if possible. I know it's always nice to buy new materials and things, but just use what you have. Make art with what you have. Sometimes if you have only a few colors or one or two brushes and things, it kind of forces you to shift your emphasis onto the creative side of art rather than the technical or material sides of making art. So if you only have 3 colors, then it's easy to choose which colors you're going to use because those are the only colors you have. If you only have 1 brush, you don't have to worry about what's the best brush to use for this part of the painting. It's part of the reason why I only use the 1 brush. It's just easier. Anyway, short story about Alfred Walis. As I say, his painting style is not my sort of thing. I have my style, he had his style, 2 very different things, but it's his story. I find it inspirational. If you made it this far in the video, thank you for watching and listening, and hopefully see you again in next week's video.